all the ideas that are coming into play. For us, we're working with the banks in the region, gaming companies in the region, and the conversations and the velocity.
When you say in the region, these can be global or they can be indigenous.
Yeah, exactly. But the velocity of the conversation is a lot faster than what we've seen in maybe the Western markets. So
wow, and even so, if you think about Dubai, because there are obviously lots of other places that would like to be leading the world in getting the best and the brightest to come and build there. How do you think about Dubai relative to the other main players? I'll let even you guys say.
yeah, for us, I think like in different regions, like it's almost like there's a slightly different objective functions in terms of like what the region is looking to become when it comes to kind of crypto and policies and things like that. Like Dubai is really about connectivity and creating a framework that allows like large companies and also small companies to come together and build like like an experiment on a number of different ideas. So for us, that's exciting. I think for us, that's also a little bit different from maybe some of the more westernized like framework that we see in the markets.
And how much of your time are you spending here now?
Well, I'm a golden visa resident technically,
so that could mean a lot of different things.
I probably spend like the half my time here.
Okay.
Yeah, give or take.
I assume it's the cooler half.
Except the summer.
Awesome. I mean, I think you can answer this sort of question in a couple of ways, right? So one thing that I think has sort of hampered the industry in a lot of ways has been the challenge around, being a very innovative industry, there's the challenge around regulation, right? And, this is the problem right now in the US, if you go to, anywhere through North America to Europe, and what regulators typically have done is they create these sandboxes, and they're like, all right, you can try stuff out, you tell us what it is in the sandbox, and then we're supposed to help you be okay with it. Usually what they do, they just tell you to shut it down. And it's actually been a very and so it's actually been a very big problem because these sandboxes actually haven't cultivated innovation in a lot of the experiences that have happened. There's some exceptions to it. But I think what's been really good here is they've actually clarified the regulation. And so there's very clear regulations in terms of like say BAR or what's happening in ADGM, where you look like even with like Bahrain and Binance now getting licensed, etc. And this is actually very critical because this actually is what allows a lot of startups to then even move here and go seek that licensing and then operate, globally or regionally. And that I think is very key. Singapore, I would say, also is quite good at this and generally leading the way sort of between, this part of the world and Singapore. Hong Kong is also on the map. There's kind of sort of different macroeconomic challenges there, right? And so I think sort of between all of this, we're actually driving the industry forward. And I think that's actually very important. The other part, I think, is just the ability to bring talent here, to operate here, and then it creates network effects, right? Like once you get to a certain level, right? So like, for example, you walk into a bar and you talk to someone random. If you can have a very intellectual conversation, it's an incredible city, right? Like think about San Francisco, New York, right? And that's what's happening here. Now you're at that level. And so now it just continues to have those exponential benefits because more people want that. So more people will.
Okay, so we're decentralized, so everybody gets to set their own rules. For me, my rules is no silly. So there's no panacea, right? We all know that. And every regardless of how well the government wants to push things forward, every government is the best of them are 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And for my visit, your third visit, but know some folks, it seems like we're in a period where maybe we're like taking a step back a little bit in terms of the openness, in terms of and maybe I'm wrong. So and again, it's not a criticism, this is just the reality. This is very difficult. There's a lot of complexities. There are a lot of, obviously, nobody in government's like #1 thing is, hey, I want to help the crypto industry, right? They've got lots of other, that's on the list somewhere, but there are a lot of counters to that. That's about,
Yeah, like when I look at kind of like how that plays out globally, we do a lot of business in like a number of different jurisdictions, and even within crypto, like almost like the use cases are very different. When we look at like different jurisdictions we work in, in North America, most of our clients are buying crypto as they hope it goes up. It's an investment use case. Mostly, we do a lot of work in like in Turkey. Similar, it's really
Turkey's a great ecosystem.
yeah. So yeah, it's super vibrant. A lot of the regulations around like any kind of token distribution is still they're creating a framework around that, but still pretty open minded. You have all the fans tokens and every sports team, but all the way to it's
A lot of the best for the brightest for Turkey.
yeah. So like, but that's very investment use case. A lot of our customers in Latin and other markets are mostly payments companies, right? They're adopting crypto, and we see how like regulations are shaped towards kind of a trading framework that is. I always say like crypto is traded globally, but actually markets are very localized, and use cases are still pretty localized, despite decentralization and everything else. So we'll see kind of how some of these things play out. But I think in the UAE, we have maybe a smaller retail market, but despite that, it's being able to attract a lot of different talents and do experiments to service companies like our customers globally. I think that's kind of maybe the attractiveness for us in here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to put you in a tough place, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that, right? I mean, you're definitely seeing, sort of this region sort of pick up in a lot of ways, and like we're seeing it directly in our portfolio. We just see tons of founders being like, "Hey, we're moving to Dubai," right? Like, there's so many challenges from like, tax incentives, to being able to bring talent to a place, to all of the other sort of barriers around running a startup. And all the other challenges, and sort of coming here just makes a lot of sense, and it opens a lot of things up. Would I say like it's sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back? I think this place is actually moving forward like very fast recently, right? I mean, it's not too long ago that Bahrain licensed finance, right? I think these are like pretty incredible things that are happening in a relatively short time.
I'm a long-term believer. I'm here, undoubtedly.
And I think also maybe what's interesting is, because there isn't 4-year election cycles here, it's a big advantage, right? Like, you'll have consistency in these policies. Of course, with the last sort of, if you take the last bull market and then sort of what happens subsequently in the bear market, we burned a lot of users on the consumer side, right? You take, Celsius, BlockFi, like all of these things that happen, and then obviously in the background is stuff like 3AC. We burnt a lot of users in this space, and so I think there's a lot of effort that needs to happen.
I will say, I'll push back on just a little bit. I don't think we have any users here. So we have 2 users, one of them got burned. Seriously, I mean, people get burned everywhere. There are scammers everywhere. Every day I get emails about some Nigerian prince. So this is a thing, but I don't understand why it's, it didn't set us back. It's just a thing, and it will be a thing forever.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think, I mean, I was like, if you go back to 2021 and I'd be in New York and talk to the taxi drivers, like they all have crypto.com accounts or like on their app, or they have like BlockFi or Celsius, and they would show you their apps. And like, because I always ask random people that aren't in crypto so that I can start to understand, where things are going, what they're thinking of when you're at the top, right? And these are just regular people, like, and that $1,000, $500, 10,000, whatever that number, like, it is very meaningful, and it's forced, right? And it's difficult because then you think about the power of that word of mouth, right? That next Thanksgiving, that next Christmas, they're telling all their friends, their family, like, don't touch crypto. This is what happened. I lost all of it, right? Like, and that's going to be hard, I think, so that to really take off. And so when you see it in this market so far, I think it's been driven a lot by, let's call it the Degen communities, meme coins, stuff like this, right? You got Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, right? So like, these are the things that are driving the industry right now. But we've got a long way to come back to, I think, really have those like killer consumer finance apps that take off and, get the average person in, and then make sure that we've got the protections to avoid the types of things that happened in the last one.
No, I agree with everything, and I also think like from a retail perspective, it's kind of like, if you want adoption, you kind of have to go through the cycle. Dream drives headline, drives adoption, drive innovation, and then you restart the cycle, right? But every time the industry becomes bigger, so that's kind of how we look at it. We see it in our clients, the volume, everything else. So that's kind of how we see it. The communities are just growing.
So thanks a lot for that. And up until now, largely solving for me because I'm super interested and want to learn. And thank you so much. Now I'll help. And again, we'll have 10 minutes of questions after this from the audience. So if you have a question, Taco, I'm sure you'll have one. So what can you tell the audience for the founders who are here and the founders who are looking to raise VC? What wisdom can you share?
Well, reach out. We're pretty actively funding companies.
Just more broadly, like
yeah, like for us, like like here, like Dubai is like really about like connectivity, right? It's like you get to meet with a lot of potential customers, investors, and all of that, but it's also these are controversially a little bit of a noisy market. So, we do see like, in terms of like the profile of kind of like how companies are built, there's sometimes maybe more tendency of
okay, I'm sorry. No, what I said I'm going to do it one more time. Shut the fuck up. Seriously, if you want to talk, go upstairs and talk. There's 10 more minutes left. I'm not going to do this again. Humans are going to want to do what they do. Go on.
Yeah, and since we have everyone's attention, if you have a good project, bring it to Ali, bring it to us, and then we're very active, and I think it's a really interesting hub in the UAE, but like with the connections like Ali and us, we have that we're doing business globally, either whether it's like customer acquisition or getting communities together, like we can be helpful. Please.
Just like to show them a little, like, how many have you guys done deals together?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, we're very lucky to have an opportunity to invest in Blockchain Founders Fund. So
me as well. I'm happy.
Yeah. So oftentimes, like actually, like, we started the company in North America, and our connectivity and relationship is very actually localized. And with the opportunity to kind of work with Ali and the team, we're able to kind of see a lot more deal flow globally, and that's kind of the same trajectory as the company as we grew globally. And yeah, we just share ideas and we look at what's interesting in the markets, and my venture team and Ali's team are, I think, in constant dialogue. I see our Telegram group is very active. So yeah, so that's kind of
that is an understatement.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of how we
Bravo!
Okay, so quick question here, show of hands. How many are founders or have an idea and want to start a company? Okay, still from fair bit. Okay, so in terms of like what you're seeing right now, I mean, when these markets sort of go hyperbolic, right? Like we think we're sort of in inning two of a bull markets. We still think we're sort of early, but you're seeing obviously markets pick up. Bitcoin sort of done very well over the last 6 months or so, and so what that means is there's a ton more projects. Like if I compare this to the last bull cycle, we're probably at seeing 10 times the number of projects we were seeing. And there's so many that like it's overwhelming, right? What about the quality? So the quality's gone up, I would say, in a lot of ways, which is great. But that also means that like founders need to raise their game. And so, for example, walking around Token 2049 this week at all the different events, like there's definitely some basics that are getting missed. So like, for example, we tell our founders that you should have an 11, 30, and 90-second pitch. Right? And so think about that for a second, right? Like you need to explain what you do in 11 seconds. If you can't do it, go figure it out, right? And so like it's things like that. How do you help them do that? Because that's hard, right? I mean, it's a victim.
Yeah, but I think it's also just spending the time to think about it, right? Like, how do you explain your company in one sentence, right? Because that's what's going to be your hook, right? And then you think about your third.
Totally. If you cannot fucking explain your company in a sentence, you're probably going to have a lot of problems.
Not a run-on sentence.
Exactly. Not a run-off sentence. Thank you.
And so, like, these things are actually very important. Like, we believe that, like, like when you send a pitch deck, if you send a pitch deck, you don't necessarily need to, but if you do, figure out how it's concise, 12 slides, right?
I say 10.
So 10, right? To be honest, like, I mean, the exact number is not the issue, but like, it's about being concise, right? And you can even check out tools. If you want a simple tool, there's a cool tool called pitchlead.ai. It's a website. You can upload your tool. It's an AI tool, and actually gives you pretty good feedback, and it tells you a bunch of things to fix out in your pitch deck, right? So you can even use a lot of these really cool tools now that'll help you figure it out, and then run it by some advisors, friends, family, get some feedback. Make sure that it's actually very clear, they understand what you're doing, and then, you know, then I think you're probably, you know, good to go and start thinking about going out and raising. And then, of course, figure out, like, what funds are going in at really early investments, right? Like, if you're going to a late stage fund when you're starting, probably not a good idea. So, you know, we invest very early. Aqua tends to invest very early. Like, come up to funds that are, you know, investing anywhere from pre-seed to, say, like Series A if you're still at the earlier stages of your company.
So great advice, really awesome advice. Thanks a lot. So 20 minutes, I'm done. Anybody have a question?
So those of us who were at the World Web3 World Conference today, Turbin was talking about the parabolic effect from 8% to 80% adoption, and he's saying we're about 4% of world adoption right now of blockchain. What do you think is going to get us from that 4% to 8% to push not just the incentive models, but the financial instruments? What do you think is going to be the next thing that gets us from 4% to 8% adoption?
That's a really good question. That's what we got to think about every day. But I think there's a few things, right? So one is access, and if you think about how much like restrictions are around certain things, so take different financial products, access to T-bills, access to like any types of investment products that's limited to, say, the US or certain countries. Access around the world is actually a really good thing, and you're seeing that with RWAs right now. I think that's a really interesting one. I think, you know, we saw play to earn in the last cycle, and it had obviously its inherent flaws. I do think that there's some major aspects here, though, where deepen and even some of those to earn type of, you know, concepts have the ability to really bring a ton of people in and align interest. But we do got to watch out about some of these, let's call it like non-economically sound products. So that's another part. You know, I would say those are kind of two of the big ones. I mean, memes are definitely there. I don't think this is like a very short-term fad that's going to go away. I think it'll, you know, probably continue and drive a lot of people in, because actually that's what we're seeing. Like, we're seeing tons of users come into the space over this aspect right now, and that's probably going to continue for quite a while.
No, I agree with everything. We got one more thing. I think a lot of it maybe also was around like alignment of incentive with a lot of the gatekeepers of users. You know, whether it's like, you know, fintech platforms or some of the, like we started like Robinhood in the US, but you know, other platforms that has mass distribution, and how those guys can actually get involved easily and be incentivized to get involved easily. I think that's probably another maybe key aspect to adoption.
Small enough room, you can just.
So actually, I'm TJ from Michael. I have two comments. One on the local retail user. So I believe personally that the local retail user is very advanced. So they know what they're investing in. They know the space, they know the industry, they know the companies. And secondly, I have something very interesting about, you know, we ban our users in the industry. I don't believe. I think that unfortunately I have to shamelessly promote Michael. At Michael, we have proven today that we have 10 million user base from across the world, mainly from the Middle East and Southeast Asia. who are Web3 users without them even knowing that they are Web3 users. So I think the future is adoption without knowing that you have to become what is crypto. No one needs to know. Nigerian Prince, I agree. I have to.
Was there a question?
No, just a comment.
Okay, this is for questions, just to be clear. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
So previously you guys were saying about consumer products and we asked about main adoption. So my question is, how can you say that meme coins push main adoption? This is just financial incentive. This is where you kind of guys make quick money because they don't last. So I personally, without attacking you, I don't think that's the main consumer market. I think it's more things like events, places where people go, easy login, easy onboarding, immediate access, social logins, Web2 experience, small community things. Look, every one of us came here. Every one of us is here, but nobody checked in. Okay, we have a list in Lima, but I feel this is the bit. So when you say consumer products, because you said it previously, so what do you mean? Like, what could it be? Games? Games, I agree, but what else could it be? Thank you.
Yeah, no, so it's a good question. So the way I sort of think about these things is there's sort of like short, medium, and long term, right? You take short term, I think without question, like memes is driving the way right now. Like, I mean, I think that's pretty empirical. It's right now. So if you take sort of more medium term or like sort of aspirational, but coming down the line, starting to happen more and more, like I do agree. So you got, anything from like gaming, entertainment, like anything that's on the entertainment side can drive in a massive amount of users. The problem is we're still far from it, right? Like there's all of this talk on gaming about AAA gaming, but no one's playing any of these yet, right? Like, I was just at GDC in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and everyone was really excited. I'm not going to say which game, but everyone was really excited about this game, and tons of people were playing it. People were making videos, watching it, sponsored by one of the biggest, layer ones in the industry. And I went and talked to the founder. I was like, "So is any of this on blockchain?" And they're like, "No." And I was like, "Why are we promoting it?" Like something's wrong here, right? And like, sure, they have a token, but none of the tech is on blockchain, right? So we do got to watch out about these things because that's what's going to burn a lot of people when like it's kind of there's that money grab, but that like foundational aspects are missing. If you take some of these other sort of built-in areas that are more seamless, like I do think this is very interesting, right? So, if it is integrated through like events and ticketing and you're seeing things like that that are starting to pick up, I do think there's value. I think there's still a long way to go, but there's definitely value. And if you think about how humans operate, right? We operate with ownership almost at the core of like how our societies work, right? Think about societies that don't have ownership rules. You basically be like, these societies are essentially like developing or third world. And even in those places, I mean, there is ownership of things, right? Like houses, cars, things like that. So as we move more into this digital world, right? So 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, how much time did we spend in the digital world? It would have been like 0%, 5%, right? Now we spend 30%, 40%, 50%. If you go Gen Z, maybe 60%, 70%, right? And so that just means that this ownership aspect has to move into the digital world. Like everything that we do in this sort of way that we operate now, it's going to transform as a society into some ways in the digital world. And so ownership of things, tracking a lot like that then flows into events, memorabilia, all of these different things are going to be part of that same way that we operate now.
Yeah, no, I kind of echo my last comment. I think all these stuff have to happen in parallel. Like even meme coins and all this stuff is really like on brand for users. That lack of a better word, the greed that's driving adoption and attention, and it's part of the educational process a lot of times. So we think like all this stuff is good experiments. It's good ways to get people involved from the community, and then all those consumer products when it comes to markets, people get familiar with it, and and that adoption cycle maybe a little bit accelerated from that.
Yeah, so we got one more question, but the answer's everything. 1 minute.
Hello, everybody, and the answer should be 11 seconds. My name is Larry Fink. I work for BlackRock. So I was wondering if the blockchain founders found and right now could give us a demonstration of your 11-second leadership.
You know, for BlackRock, yeah, we're the liquid. Okay. Good to go. Yeah, we're the liquidity provider for a bunch of the actually Canadian ETFs that were first in the markets, and you know, excited to work with BlackRock on that initiative there. Actually, we were.
So we invested in venture building the most innovative Web3 companies in the world. I mean, that's it.
So let's give them a big hand. I thought there was a lot of out here. Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks a lot, Bill. You guys are awesome. First, yeah, I would, as I said, we are decentralized, so I get to show up, but I really didn't do anything other than like buy a plane ticket here. First, I'd like to have a big shout out for the organizers of the evening, Micah and Amer and the whole team. We have another, very big supporter of Crypto Mondays in the room tonight, to Gregor. Gregor, are you here? You want to come to say a word if he wants to?